for Independence Day weekend, you found the Georgia Gang. And topping our agenda today, Burl Ellis loses in DeKalb Superior Court. The Georgia High Court says the Braves are okay with those Cobb County bonds, and all around us, people want to tear down the monuments. Those are some of the stories up for grabs on this Independence Day weekend.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
And happy Independence Day to all. The holiday was Friday. Saturday was
the actual day.
The actual day.
And fireworks were legal in Georgia.
That's right, and we're going to get to that. And there were still fireworks upcoming tonight. Just randomly, Sandy Springs having a big one. So this is a good weekend all around. We're going to begin with a story we've been with for well over 2 years. This week, a DeKalb County jury convicted Burl Ellis on 4 of 9 felony charges, and he faces up to 15 years in prison. And Jeff, this is bittersweet. You and I, since the beginning, have had our doubts and questions about the actual indictment, whether raising campaign contributions is a felony. But in this case, he was convicted of 1 of those felony charges.
An attempted bribery charge.
But yes. 3 charges of perjury, in court that didn't square with his grand jury testimony.
Yeah.
So what do you think? He obviously will appeal.
He will appeal. You know, it's a really sad day, I think, in DeKalb County and for elected officials everywhere, because they all do this. They all call vendors and they all call prospective donors, and they could all end up in prison if this is any standard that, you know, prosecutors want to pursue around the state.
Well, careful. They don't all call.
No. Sometimes they have surrogates do it on their behalf.
That's exactly right.
And in fact,
fundraising consultants.
That's exactly right. That's right. And so he did not have that degree of separation, and that's why he's in trouble. It reminds me, though, some of the charges remind me of the phone calls that I would get and that all of us on this panel would get on a Friday morning before we taped. Burl Ellis would call each of us on the phone and tell us what was going on in DeKalb County that day. Now, we've got hundreds of elected officials in this metro area, but the one that we could rely on to call us was Burl Ellis, because that's the kind of person he was. And I think that he was doing the same thing with vendors to try to raise campaign funds or to retire his campaign debt, and I don't see anything inherently wrong with it. One of the other things that we need to point out, that we pointed out many times about this case, was that he's never been accused of stealing a public dime.
No, that's true. You and I have said that from the beginning.
Right.
Phil, he gets sentenced next week. He could face up to 15 years if the sentences were concurrent. I suspect he will be sentenced to 2 to 3 to 4 years, something like that. His pay now finally stops. At least now DeKalb is not paying 2 CEOs.
Well, that's right. And Jeff, I sympathize with what you're saying, but the other side of the coin is, and Dick alluded to this last week, the tapes were devastating. And I think he would have been better off having a fundraising consultant make those calls, because you just don't tell vendors, you know, if you don't pony up, you'll never do business in DeKalb County. And that's what caught him up. Even you admitted, he got a little arrogant. He was upset that phone calls weren't being returned. I get that. We all don't like that. But I tell you what, he's a public official, and you don't try to stop people from doing business because they don't pony up to your political campaign. And that's what tripped him up. And again, perjury, as you pointed out, that's very serious.
Alexis, it all seems so unnecessary. He was facing token opposition in his campaign for re-election. Right. I mean, he was going to win 3 to 1 anyway. And yet he had to hammer on these campaign contributions. He could have reduced the campaign debt. It was minimal for an office that size. And it just seems so unnecessary to me that a promising career like his goes up on these phone calls.
Well, that's hindsight, the benefit of hindsight to say that. But when you're running, you don't take anything for granted, and you need to do the fundraising that you need to do. And again, it goes back to the structure of the office and the position. You have the person running for the position who is also in charge of managing the day-to-day operations. And that's where the conflict easily arises, or even an appearance of a conflict, because you have to both manage the operations, talk to the vendors, manage them, and then you have to solicit them for contributions. So it is a really bad situation, and I'm just really sorry that he got caught up in it in a way that, you know, even the person who said he bullied him, They didn't even find him guilty of that particular charge. One of the companies that claimed he.
Well, and look at this another way. Let's just look at it with a little bit broader perspective. Burl Ellis was succeeded Vernon Jones as the DeKalb County Chief Executive. He had support all across the county, especially in white DeKalb and Republican DeKalb, because he had credentials.
Right.
He seemed real as opposed to Vernon, whom no one could ever figure out, right? And now it's just all blown up. I mean, Burl Ellis could have easily run for Congress at some point,
I agree
and
with
for
you.
statewide office.
I agree with you. He built bridges, as you point out, with both the black and the white communities, and he was pro-business and just a very well, I think I could say a good manager. But again, those tapes were devastating. There was a side of Burl Ellis I'd never seen, disparaging people, saying, you know, they're not going to do business here, and that's what did him in.
I think you're right. He did have a promising career, you know, beautiful family, beautiful wife, young kids, great kids, and it's just sad. I mean, you know, that last week in DeKalb, it was like a funeral. People were just going around and sort of in a daze.
I think his political career is over, even if he were to win on appeal. I just don't think he could come back after this. And even again, I want to say, just for the record, I've been with you on this from the beginning.
Yes.
I've questioned the indictment. Now, having said that, his decision to testify, and Phil, you just mentioned it, when they were able to cross-examine him and then play the jury, the wiretap tapes. And he clearly wasn't telling the truth. The jury saw that, you know. He had to deny what he was saying on tape.
Well, that's right. And the other political factor is, whether you like it or not, is Robert James, the DA, is now the man of the hour. He's the giant killer. This was his second attempt, and it helps him politically.
I don't think that this is any help at all to Robert James. My understanding is that he used virtually every strike during jury selection to strike African American voters. I mean, jurors, prospective jurors, and though, you know,
That goes on in every courtroom in the state.
Oh my God, no!
I
I'll
mean,
tell you what.
There's
There's actually a Supreme Court ruling out there, and I believe a Batson motion has been filed in this case that says that you can't do
So
that.
Robert
Well,
James is a
all right,
racist.
let's wrap this up with this. Will Robert James go any further? He's already brought one just god-awful indictment against an aide to Commissioner Elaine Boyer.
And that was a case
$200
over
or something.
$200, and that was a case with Elaine Boyer. There was a case where you did have some actual stealing of public
Personal
funds,
gain,
and he didn't even pursue that case.
No, the feds did that.
feds did
Now,
that.
that's a good point. See, James is under pressure because...
will he go further? That's my question.
Well, the answer is yes, because you've already got widespread corruption, as we know, in DeKalb County. I think virtually every county commissioner is being targeted with the P card scandal.
I think that
Jeff?
people north and south are lining up against Robert James. Certainly people in the legal community.
That's what I hear.
That's right, that he's already been denied some chairmanship in the legal community that was very prominent.
Who's going
and
to
that
run
there are
against
people
him?
on the north side who were supporting
I think
Sherry
there's a-
Boston.
There'll be a
as a
line.
solicitor
There'll
would
be a
run.
line.
Phil.
But there's going to be a long list of candidates who are going to run against him, and I think that he's very, very vulnerable, particularly after this charge and the damage that this has done to the image and reputation of DeKalb County.
Well, I
Well,
understand.
now,
I
wait a minute.
understand
I'm
that.
not gonna go-
I
I'm not gonna put
understand
it
that
that
Burl
way.
Ellis was your friend, but just politically, just analyzing this politically, there's a lot of corruption in DeKalb County. All four of us have agreed and talked about that.
Well, the grand jury has agreed.
That's
the grand
exactly
jury
right.
wanted Robert James to investigate a whole raft of people,
So,
including Vernon Jones.
My point is, he's under pressure to do more, and if he gets more scalps, that'll make him look better.
Well, if he does more and looks good, fine, but for right now, he's in some trouble. All right, we got to get out. We're going to come back. This didn't go exactly according to plan. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about the Braves in Cobb County, and I'm going to rip Kasim Reed. There's a surprise. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at myfoxatlanta.com.
Before I go on a good-natured holiday rant, let's dispose of a few local news items. Number one, the Supreme Court of Georgia this week said to Cobb County, you may sell the bonds to put the taxpayers on the hook for about $360 million to build the new Braves Stadium. Anyone surprised by that decision?
No.
Nope.
Especially since it's halfway constructed.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's going up fast.
Right, it's going up real fast.
And the second one is, it's almost like an annual thing, but this one's a little different. MGM Grand, the huge casino and hotel company, has proposed or is suggesting, I don't think it's a formal proposal, a major casino hotel complex somewhere in downtown Atlanta, perhaps near the stadium. I'm surprised they didn't mention underground. But here we go again. They're promising, or they're suggesting, 3,500 jobs. Ron Stevens in the General Assembly seems to be a proponent of this. It's not going to happen, is it?
Not under Governor Deal. He's made himself clear that he doesn't want Las Vegas-style casino gambling. However, we all know Georgia politics, and the polling seems to be changing in recent years, on especially if you tie it, which you would have to do,
hey, I got it.
to the Hope
The
Scholarship.
polling's changing. We can make it a homosexual casino.
Oh, please.
And it could be a
come
site for
on.
gay weddings.
I don't think you need to worry about that here in Georgia.
That's
But
not-
let me finish my point. Let me finish my point, because the legislature could continue with this. You pointed out the Stevens bill. He's trying to identify various locations, and as I say, it would have to be tied to the Hope Scholarship and pre-K. That's lottery funded. You have to tie it to the lottery.
Yes, I do agree with that, but I also think it's a huge economic development opportunity for the city and the state. I mean, 3,500 jobs, and people would be able to come downtown Atlanta instead of going to North Carolina.
Now,
or
it would be a
Alabama.
local option. Let's explain this a little. It would be local option. It would be a constitutional amendment. An entity would have to vote yes or no to this.
That's right.
It would
But
be
the
a
fact of the matter
bonanza.
is, it would be a bonanza, and as a hospitality city, a convention destination, we have very little adult entertainment except for our adult entertainment. and I think that's one of the things that's going to eventually get us there, but we're not there yet. I don't think the legislature's ready. I don't think the politics are right yet.
No, I agree.
And we saw the same thing
I'm
with
joking,
the
but I
lottery.
agree, yeah.
We saw the same thing with the lottery, whenever that was, 20, 25 years ago. And
Right.
it took some time.
It took some time.
And it's going to take some time this time around.
All right, now you all are just going to laugh at me. Go ahead, get it out of your system. But I'm outraged at Mayor Kasim Reed of Atlanta, dealing with a communist dictatorship in Cuba.
Let me
It has
laugh.
been a bedrock principle of American government for 40 years that we don't deal with Fidel Castro.
Yeah.
And now President
those communists are terrible.
President Obama is trying to open diplomatic relations.
Why did Governor Deal go to China? I mean, that was terrible. He was going over there trying to increase
Meet with
trade.
a communist dictator.
Oh my God!
It is.
So
That
Kasim
was
Reed is-
horrible.
Kasim Reed,
And didn't Richard Nixon start all that?
You
with
can
China?
get on your high horse, but it would have been nice if Barack Obama had gotten at least one concession from the communist
Thank you.
dictatorship.
Thank you, Phil.
Nothing. You do try to negotiate. He's such an amateur when it comes to this.
No, I don't think that's true.
He's
at all,
an am-
because
what about
we're still-
human rights?
there's
You don't
still a-
care about
there's-
human
there is
rights
still
in
a
Cuba?
trade. There's still a trade embargo in place, and I think that if we cared about humanity and human rights, we wouldn't have people over there making $20
If
a
you're
month.
going to
only
grant
thing-
diplomatic ties, Jeff, even you are savvy enough to try to get some
Well,
concessions.
you got to start somewhere, and I think that you get the concessions when it comes time when you start talking about trade, and we're just not there yet.
Well, there are two
Look,
things.
and the fact of the matter is that opening up these kinds of relations, whether it's with China or Russia, which Republicans have done gleefully, the only way you're going to be able to get them to fundamentally change their economies is to begin these conversations, and that's what Barack Obama has done. I think that when Kasim Reed goes over there, he's looking at what is inevitable, and that is that we will do trade with Cuba, 90 miles off
we already
Florida,
do.
and we ought not be. And we
state already
do some.
does.
That's right, and we ought to be trying to increase that and make sure that all of it doesn't go to Miami and New York. And
That's
I'm with
right.
him. I think he's
Well,
right.
get some concessions and get some human rights
well,
concessions.
the only thing Kasim Reed didn't do was pose in a Che Guevara T-shirt.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have done that for the sake of the old 60s hippies.
I was absolutely shocked that he was over there in a dark suit and shirt and tie because it had to be hot in late June
Right.
in Cuba.
And there were pictures, and there were
was
news
very
photographs
officious.
of Mayor Reed taking pictures of slums, and I thought to myself, well, that's basically what Havana is, but he didn't have to go all the way to Havana to take pictures of slums. He could have walked out the back door of City Hall.
Excuse me, I don't think so.
Sure.
Not, no,
Well, and
no.
there's
How
also
about, how about English Avenue? How
There's
about the
also-
area behind the stadium?
there's
But
also
there
the fact
are
that you're not.
neighborhoods that don't even compare to the neighborhoods in Havana. months. Come on.
Well, I think he ought to fix things here first.
Well, I
it's
believe that's what
clear
they're
that
working on,
that
especially
the
going outside
50
the
years
stadium.
of trying to isolate Cuba hasn't worked. The only thing that it's done is created a nation of impoverished people, and we ought to be able to do something better than that.
So you were in favor of the embargo to South Africa, but you don't like the embargo of Cuba. That doesn't make any sense
Well,
whatsoever.
it makes perfectly good sense.
Embargoes
actually,
often work.
especially
In fact,
if you're black.
You know, Castro was exporting revolution. You
Right.
forget that Dick
But
is
here's the
right.
thing.
Castro's
What
a
is-
murderer.
what
The
is that
Castro
old
brothers are
saying?
murderers,
There's
and they
two-
tried to
two sayings that
conduct
apply.
terrorism.
What is it? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, is the definition of
please.
insanity.
The only thing-
And the other quote is, "New occasions teach new duties. Time makes ancient good uncouth."
Well, that doesn't apply to murderous
It
dictatorships half
applies
the
to
time.
relationships between the United States and Cuba.
The only good thing about Castro's Cuba is 1957 Chevrolets.
You can go down there and
Nothing
get a
he's
pretty
done
one.
has worked. He is a murderous dictator. He did export terrorism.
He did.
And here we are.
That was the reason for the embargo. You appropriated billions of dollars of American property. You would just gloss over this because you really kind of like
Well,
him,
you're
don't
not
you?
going to
No.
embargo
Come on.
Cuba, are you? I mean, you're not going to embargo China because there's
You know
too
what?
much
We
money.
got
to be
concession-
made.
we got
You might
concessions, Jeff.
You're not embargoing
I am for
Russia
trade.
despite the,
I am for
Well, no,
trade.
we have
Iron
no. We got to get out of
Well,
this.
absolutely.
Believe me, we've got heavy
Yeah.
sanctions on Russia. That's one thing that President Obama has done, is
Impose
squeeze Putin a little bit through sanctions. All right, we've got to get out. When we come back, years ago I used to joke that someday somebody's going to propose we take down the carvings on Stone Mountain. Guess what? We're here. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at myfoxatlanta.com.
We got a little heated on the Georgia Gang last week in the wake of the awful murders of 9 people in Charleston, South Carolina. And I'd raised the question of how we went from discussing this god-awful crime to all of a sudden worrying about the Confederate battle emblem. I didn't get that, but the movement has continued in the last week, and it's come right to our doorstep. State Representative LaDawn Jones, I'm not familiar with her, but she wants the flags taken down around the monument at Stone Mountain. I don't think she suggested removing the carving, has she?
No.
Just the flags that would show an historical display of the flags that have flown over Georgia. Is that the idea?
That's right. By state law, the Stone Mountain is a perpetual memorial to the Confederacy. And so, yes, you're going to have flags and banners. You've got the giant carving of 3
The law
Confederate
even says
heroes.
they have to sell Confederate stuff. I didn't know that.
They do. They have to sell Confederate memorabilia, and it's never to be obscured or removed. And
Much like the law in
and, you
South
know, and
Carolina
you
with the
said
flag
last
up
week,
there on
you
the
said last
grounds.
week, let's put things in a museum. This is a museum.
And that's fine.
It is
Let it be the museum.
It is a
Okay,
museum.
then
I
we're
think that there
agreed.
was also this week a proposal by some state legislator, and it may have been the one that you mentioned, to boycott Stone Mountain. And these are people who just don't understand Stone Mountain. If you go out there now, you'll see the majority of people walking around the mountain are African American.
That's true.
And you really don't have to obliterate the carving on the statue. All you have to do is just hang a banner that says "Defenders of Slavery," or you could even engrave it for posterity.
You'll be arrested. I'd love to see you being hauled away with your banner.
Yeah, it can augment the programming, right?
Yeah,
But Dick, there was a CNN poll that said, and hadn't changed in 15 years, 57% of the respondents to the CNN poll said that they perceived this, it's a battle flag,
That's
as
right.
a symbol of Southern pride. Now, I know there's 2 sides to the coin.
That's right. If you
But
count
shouldn't we be
the
respecting?
respondents,
Shouldn't we be
African-American
respecting?
respondents
We're all
don't
for
have that same
respecting each other and keeping the
affection.
conversation going. You always say that.
See, I've
we
always
say
thought
that.
it was stupid. The protesters are protesting something that was not an official symbol of the Confederacy.
Right.
They don't even know what the original flag of the Confederacy was.
No.
Yeah,
They're
nor do most Southerners who seem to be embracing this as some symbol of their heritage or their history.
We had
Actually,
a war
what
in
it is just,
1861 and 1865. You can't erase
No.
history.
We
No, you
did.
can't. But who won
Yeah,
and who
but-
lost? Let's get
Well, you
that
know,
straight.
let's get that straight too. That's fine. You know, a lot
And
of
what was the war about?
hundreds of thousands of white people died for freeing the slaves. So I'm with you on that one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's remember
Well,
that.
yeah. But then it gets even sillier. Our old friend Bobby Kahn, who was executive assistant to Governor Roy Barnes, and who's a smart guy. Bobby Kahn's real smart, ran this state for several years.
And helped Roy lose his reelection.
Yes, and had quite a voice on the Georgia gang for some time. I'm sorry. But Bobby Kahn wants the OK Cafe on Northside Drive and West Paces Ferry to remove some piece of art that has the Confederate battle flag.
It's the old state flag, the
I'm
56 state flag.
Oh, is that what it is?
And I'm with him. I think it's terrific. I think it's
Why?
a great idea.
How about the right of the private property owner to have whatever the heck they want in their restaurant?
you know,
I don't care about that.
I'm with that. I really am. I'm with that. I think that they should be able to do that, but they should also be inclusive
Who's
and
Bobby-
understand
who's
that a lot
Bobby
of
Kahn to
people,
bully
a
this
lot of folks
property
who
owner?
go into there. Yeah, I don't think that it's bullying. I think it's a suggestion.
Oh, he's been
But a lot of
harassing this-
people go in there and are offended by that. So
It's
you
a-
want to be
it's-
inclusive?
it's a
Do you want to include all of your customers, or do you want to exclude?
sensitivity.
Let me get one more item in before we go. I'm glad we're almost joking about this because, again, you just can't compare what happened in Charleston, South
No.
Carolina, with fights over a battle flag. It just it doesn't make any sense to me. Now, this week fireworks sales became legal in Georgia, and I must admit I must have been asleep at the switch. I didn't know you can blow up fireworks under the new law 365 days a year. I had no idea.
You thought it was just for holidays?
You thought it was just for the
I
4th?
honestly thought it was just for holidays. And I've got this, I've been watching the news clips on Fox 5 of these people lined up at these fireworks stores. And one company alone opened, boy, talk about good business, opened up 250 locations, just like that.
Well, there's billboards all over the state now advertising fireworks, too. It just came overnight.
A new
But you know, I mean,
economic boom.
a lot of people in a lot of neighborhoods have gotten used to the sound of gunfire at night. But now you got to talk about fireworks going off 365 days a year.
I don't think so. I think that people just use it right around the holidays, just like they do in neighboring states where it's been legal for years. It's just new to Georgia. It's a novelty, so it's going to, you know, folks are going
I
to line up
think
for a
you're
little
right.
while, and
I
then
think you're right.
it's going to wear off. I don't think that you're going to have it on St.
I'm not
Patrick's Day.
that optimistic. I'm not that optimistic.
Labor Day.
Yeah, I don't want the Irish out there on St. Patrick's Day with their fireworks for some other reasons. All right, when we come back, winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
A quick plug here. Remember that you can find us on YouTube. We're working on that YouTube channel. Phil, you've been great through Insider Advantage promoting our efforts, and it's been years, really, since anyone could find a copy of this broadcast.
And
now
you can subscribe for free to the Fox 5 YouTube channel, and if you missed the show, you can see it.
we had some heavy traffic on our Facebook page this week, which is good. And so here we are. We're going to do winners and losers, and I will start with you, Phil, having already made you a winner.
Well, thank you, and I want to make, I hope, a winner, and that is Iraq war veteran Chris Dorsey. You saw over at the Oakwood VA facility, he was denied twice entry. We cannot continue to treat our veterans in such a shabby fashion. It's an outrage. The Secretary, the Obama administration promised this wouldn't happen. Well, it did happen. Thank you to U.S. Senator Johnny Isakson. And I might add both the Democrat and the Republicans in our Georgia congressional delegation. This is interesting. This is a loser. Did you see Georgia has not gotten in step with drone policies. You know, this is a fairly new phenomenon, and you see them flying around the city of Atlanta.
Hey, we had one at the 4th of July parade in Dunwoody.
Did you? Well,
Yeah.
I tell you what, don't tell the Georgia Building Authority because I don't think they have any statutory authority to do this, but they banned everything around the Capitol and the governor's mansion for 5 miles drones. And I think that we need to rethink this policy, especially in terms of public safety, and they're the losers. And Jimmy Carter, if I may say so, is the loser. The winner. Barack Obama is the loser because Jimmy Carter said the Obama foreign policy successes are, quote, minimal.
And he also said that they were not mostly due to President Obama, but things that led to them.
Okay,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, Alexis.
Okay, sorry.
This will be the first time I've agreed with Jimmy Carter since 1975, but go ahead.
Okay. All right. I'm going to recognize Posta Costin, who was the first African American elected to the Fayette County Commission. She's in hospice, and she was just elected this past fall and just took office in January. So we send out our prayers to her and her family. Also, I want to recognize Peachtree Road Race, the 46th annual, the largest 10K in the world, right here in Atlanta, and it's happening after we tape, but we're hoping everybody has a great time, and it was a great event.
You're not running on that new hip of yours.
No, I'm not ready for that. I probably won't do it again. I did it once, but that was
All right,
enough.
Jeffrey?
I have two superintendents who are winners. Incoming superintendent in DeKalb County, Stephen Green. He's coming from Kansas City. Was sworn in last week, and we wish him well. And outgoing superintendent Michael Thurman, who did a terrific job
Took a
stabilizing
$14 million deficit
and
into
turned
an
it-
$80 million surplus.
Thank you very much. That's exactly right, and made so many other huge improvements in the school district over a short period of time. My suggestion, Michael Thurman as CEO of DeKalb to stabilize the whole government.
I'll tell you what, people could go with that. We've got to get out. My winner, Mike Bodker, the mayor of Johns Creek, selected the president of the Georgia Municipal Association for the coming year. And the Atlanta Hawks, we lost Amari Carroll. That's too bad, but we saved Paul Millsap. See you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.